Hello, hello, this is FSdrake coming at you with another StarCraft 2 netcast. Today we have another round from the Playhem tournament hosted by Team HH, I believe. And today we're going to go ahead and introduce these players. Down here in the bottom right hand corner, spawning as the red Terran player on GSL Whirlwind, we have the one, the only, WorkHorse. Look at those little SCVs mining their little hearts out, taking after their commander. Clearly a very hard-working horse indeed. And his opponents spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of GSL Whirlwind as the pink Protoss. Definitely loving alliterations here. Unfortunately, his name does not begin with a P. His name is FSdrake. FSdrake just commenting about how he's likely seen this map on probably the GSL, has been liking it, but has never played on it. WorkHorse also kind of agreeing with him, saying, yeah, I've never actually played it on or I've only played it a couple of times. We don't really know if WorkHorse actually hates this map, but we're going to find out. Anyways, it looks like FSdrake's initial scouting probe is going to go ahead and move out. Looks like that probe did decide to go ahead and scout out right after building that pylon, and really curious, where is the gateway from FSdrake? Looks like it's going to be a 15 Nexus, maybe 14 Nexus. We're going to find out. What's it going to do? Is it going to be another probe? It's not going to really make a big difference, but it looks like it's going to be a 14 Nexus at this point. Yeah, I don't know why I carried that on for so long. It's pretty obvious at this point, but there it is, the 14 Nexus, and that does mean that FSdrake is taking a little bit of a risk. If WorkHorse does see this, he can do some kind of really big all-in-ish builds, but it's going to come down to whether or not WorkHorse is going to scout him in time to do it, or if he's just going to throw down this command center, as it looks like he's planning on doing. And with that SCV scouting out after the barracks, it looks like WorkHorse is definitely not going to scout it in time. I don't think he'll be able to appropriately punish this, but fortunately for WorkHorse, his command center won't be too far behind FSdrake's Nexus. Now, that just being able to create that Nexus before the gateway is going to give Drake a little bit of an economic advantage, but it will not be a substantial one. So looking like the game is starting off pretty gosh darn even. The one racks expand, or one gate expand, or even just Nexus first or command center first, those kind of builds have become much more common in this matchup, just because players have learned to hold off a lot of those big all-in-ish builds, or the big pressure builds, just through solid scouting, force fields, and really just being able to pump out a lot of good old Marines. So all these kind of small refinements has finally allowed these players to really start playing a little bit more greedily, I would want to say, but while still maintaining a relatively safe stance in the game. Now it looks like the Nexus is finishing up for FSdrake. He is going to likely transfer over a couple of workers in the near future, but one interesting note is there is still no gas geyser down for FSdrake. We actually see 2 gateways and a forge. What is this madness? It looks like FSdrake looking to defend his expansion, potentially with some cannons. Looks like this probe might be itching to throw down a couple of cannons. Might want to get theirs down the defense, and it looks like there's the first cannon, but the SCV coming in at the perfect time is going to make it past both of those cannons before they actually end up finishing. But the 2 Zealots, oh wow, these 2 Zealots did a little bit of a double take. They were like, hey there, how's it going? You know, giving the little good old head nod that you oftentimes give people in the hallway that you don't kind of know, but you don't really know that well. And they suddenly realize, whoa, wait, we're actually on the job here. We can't, Bill, come back. You're not allowed to be here. Unfortunately for them, they might actually end up getting fired, but we'll have to see, because it looks like Bill is going to go ahead and get out with this nice little pair of resources. I don't know if he actually stole those from the Protoss base, but it'd be very sad for the Protoss base if he did. Those are the secret documents. That is the flag in this red versus pink, not blue. They changed their color to pink. It's you might think it's an undersection of red, but it's really not. It's actually a slight tone from blue. So their commander told them anyways. But back on the topic of the game, it looks like WorkHorse just building up that good old barracks count, going to be looking to get Marauders rather than those faster medevacs, as sometimes a lot of Terran players will like to transition into 3 barracks off of the 1 racks expand and then start hacking toward those medevacs. It allows them to start doing drops. Even though your army will be a little bit smaller in size, you also have the ability to just utilize those medevacs to start utilizing stim more often and really be able to put on a little bit of pressure without having a larger force. But meanwhile, it looks like FSdrake, does he finally? Yes, he does finally have that cybernetic score, as well as 2 gas mining from here and an additional 2 gas about to be mining over at his natural expansion, so that while that gas starts to plummet up, we will be seeing some good old tech coming out likely from FSdrake. We're going to have to wait and see what he ends up deciding to go toward. And as of right now, he's just going to continue to actually get single forge, just single forge upgrades for now, but he's going to go ahead and chrono boost those out so that +1 weapons are very curious choices. Oftentimes, Protoss players do prefer to get the +1 armor rather than the weapons first, just because these Marines attack so gosh darn fast that that armor really starts to kick in those big engagements where the Marines are dealing a heavy amount of the Terran DPS. Anyways, it looks like we do see the robotics facility going down in the production tab for the Protoss player. Meanwhile, it looks like a WorkHorse going ahead and getting those double upgrades of his own +1/+1 that is going to let him get a little bit of an edge on FSdrake if FSdrake does not decide to get another forge and start getting out 2 upgrades at a time. But for the meanwhile, it looks like a very, very large gateway count coming out for FSdrake. Oh, actually, it looks like just these 5 gateways. He does not have any over at his natural expansion, so going to be looking to just do some 5 gate plus robo aggression. Maybe we might even be looking to pick a 3rd. We don't quite know yet, but it's going to be interesting to see. I kind of feel like he's more likely to be going for that 3rd expansion, just as these cannons feel like a much more defensive position to me, in addition to this 3rd cannon that's being thrown down. So it looks like FSdrake looking to play the long macro game. We're going to have to see how that works out for him, as he is getting that observer out that will be able to scout out exactly what his opponent is up to in this game. Speaking of what his opponent is up to, looks like there's a move out from WorkHorse. And just a side little note, I love this little play right over here. WorkHorse not entirely sure what FSdrake is up to, so he did go ahead and throw down that missile turret. Does not want to waste the scans, just says, hey, I'm just going to play it safe, as my opponent could be up to a lot of things at this point. Now, the observer did catch a glimpse of this army coming in. If FSdrake was paying attention, it looks like he might have been, as there is another cannon going down. It looks like FSdrake is preparing for this. He does have a couple of sentries and has some zealots morphing in, so he will be able to deal with this if he has some really good force fields. And it looks like WorkHorse moving up. He could get force fielded. His entire army could get force fielded on the ramp. Where's the Guardian Shield? Where are the force fields? The force fields are late! Oh no, FSdrake had a golden opportunity to deal a massive amount of damage to WorkHorse's standing force, but it looks like for now, WorkHorse is going to escape, despite the fact that those cannons were doing a pretty good amount of damage. There were a couple of losses in WorkHorse's army, but with the medevacs that will eventually pop out in the near future, I assure you. I assume that actually that reactor, yes, the reactor is building for that starport. Those medevacs will be able to heal up those units in no time, and it will just allow WorkHorse to put on a little bit of aggression, get a little bit of map control, even allowed this one Marauder to stand guard at this watch post over by the Zelnaga Tower. He's in charge. Hopefully he'll be able to report all of his stuff in time. But in the meanwhile, it looks like FSdrake going for that robotic space. We will be seeing those Colossus, and in addition to that, this extra second forge. This is exactly what I was talking about. FSdrake, if he wants to keep up in those upgrades, he does need to get that second forge, and he will be able to get those +2/+2 upgrades started relatively soon. He does have quite a bit of money banked up, especially those minerals, but in the meanwhile, it looks like, especially with that chrono boost, he will be able to catch up and actually potentially even take a lead on the upgrades for a short while if he continues to chrono boost those upgrades out. Looks like this Immortal, just being the scouting Immortal, he thinks that he saw a factory over here, but he doesn't realize he can't actually attack air units. No, I know that that's a building Immortal, but you can't attack it while it's lifted off. Why is the building lifted off, Commander? It's a long story. Just don't worry about it. But anyways, that Immortal does finally realize he can't do anything, and he instead sends out his friend the Zealot. Now, I want you guys to take a note at the supply right now. It is 113 to 140 supply, and that is a little bit of a that's a little bit deceiving at this point in time, because FSdrake is getting out that good old Colossus count. He is also chrono boosting out those double upgrades. So even though he is down a little bit in supply, he has all the sentries he wants. He has a good Immortal. He has the double upgrades and those Colossus popping out. So he's actually investing quite heavily in that tech. He even actually has the charge out. And wow, actually taking a hidden third expansion, a very interesting play indeed. But my point is that FSdrake has invested in a lot of things that make his army better when it's, even though it's a smaller supply army, they are just more cost-effective units. Meanwhile, WorkHorse really investing heavily in just getting that Marine Marauder count up. Sure, he is getting those +2 upgrades as well, but his medevac count is relatively low, does not have ghosts, does not have any kind of Viking count to speak of, as he is just now starting to produce those Vikings. But WorkHorse is not invested quite as heavily in tech, but instead gets a larger standing force, actually now up to about 40 supply above FSdrake. So FSdrake is going to have to be very careful. And actually FSdrake even investing additional minerals into these cannons. That's actually quite a few cannons. That is over enough minerals for another Nexus. So hopefully that does pay off. Sometimes a lot of players like to say, hey, once you have your third expansion as a Protoss, just throw down the cannons. It'll help you deal with drops. It'll help you deal with any kind of small aggression that a enemy opponent does decide to put on. But I'm not sure that I like the placement of these cannons. I think that even placing one or two of these cannons maybe behind the mineral line or over a little bit closer to the Nexus might help to deal with those drops a little bit better. But it looks like we do see a scan from WorkHorse. He does see that the army is a little bit out of position. The Zealot's not quite in the front, so he's going to go ahead and decide to engage. There's only one Colossus. There are some pretty good force fields that are splitting up the army, making it a little bit more difficult for that back army to attack, and it looks like the concave and the positioning of poor FSdrake is just almost not good enough. Wow! It looks like WorkHorse with the larger force does not matter about those force fields. He just has enough to push forward, and he might actually be able to take this game at this point if FSdrake is not able to do enough damage with these warpins, or maybe not take the game, but he might be able to do a substantial amount of damage. But these cannons really worth their weight in gold at this point. They were able to do quite a significant amount of damage to the remaining units. You can see that these medevacs have next to no health at this point. And now the probes are going to continue to retreat, even though there are not that many minerals over here at this natural expansion. The gas geysers are very, very important. It looks like that Nexus is likely going to go down, even with the addition of this additional Colossus. And it looks like these probes might even be out for blood as well. They will be able to clean up this army without too much of a problem, but oh no! It looks like additional probes are going to be lost in this engagement, but they do get an amazing surround, stopping this stutter step micro, and actually, unfortunately for the Protoss army, none of these units actually attack upwards. So the remaining 3 Marauders are going to go back and tell their friends a horrific tale about how they got tased to death as giant laser beams from the sky just massacred their friends. But anyways, we do see, wow, another expansion already finished up for FSdrake, a 4th expansion, way before WorkHorse actually finishes up his 4th and potentially 5th expansion. So FSdrake is going to be looking to be in a fairly good position. There is those cannons that FSdrake has been planting down this entire game, hopefully looking to get a very solid defense. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. Now it looks like with the army of WorkHorse narrowing out just a little bit, he was able to get up a much larger medevac count. He did do a good job of retaining most of the medevacs from that engagement, so that will help him out quite a bit in the future engagements. It does allow him to stim, keeps his army alive, and all of that very, very important stuff. But will it be enough? As we can see, FSdrake is once again investing in the tech. And tech indeed he shall, as he's getting that Psionic Storm. So even though FSdrake did manage to get up that 4th expansion, I'm not sure that his army is going to be large enough to deal with this massive army from WorkHorse, at least in comparison to FSdrake's army. We can see it's just these Zealots and this Colossus. Oh no, that's definitely not enough. The Colossus taking massive hits from the Vikings. of Workhorse and that great macro just replenishing the army. Workhorse is already maxed pretty much again with a couple additional units over here. Now his army moving into the 4th expansion of FSdrake, and FSdrake just really does not have enough to deal with this. He's going to have to sacrifice this expansion, and the probes are really a little bit worried, not really sure where to run. He does not want to give away his hidden 3rd expansion, so he's not going to run his probes up there, at least not quite yet. It looks like, yeah, he's just going to go ahead and sacrifice them. Wants to at least keep this 3rd base alive. That is going to be his saving grace if he can keep it alive and potentially get up a couple of High Templar that will be able to throw down a couple of Psionic Storms. But no, it looks like he does not have Psionic Storm finished, does not have any High Templar actually out at this point in time. So that's really going to be a very difficult position for FSdrake. Even though, yes, he tried to take that 4th expansion, his natural expansion ended up getting denied, so he was not able to mine additional gas from over there. And his 4th ended up getting denied, so he's basically on 2 base, and not even 2 base, really. It's more like 1 base, as these gas geysers are already running pretty low, and honestly, I don't think he has the army to defend this. He's warping a massive number of units in with that high gateway count, but only 1 Colossus really out. That Colossus is going to get picked off by those Vikings. The Vikings saying, hey, I don't care if I'm taking some damage. You don't have any Colossus left at all. And even the Sentry getting picked off. I'm not sure what FSdrake can do to hold this at this point, folks. It looks like Workhorse's macro really just too gosh darn good in this situation. He is maxed out. He even has a nice bank built up. He has additional command centers to start taking his 4th and 5th expansions at this point. And this one Colossus doing as much damage as he can with us +3, +2 upgrades, but it's just not enough. He only gets 2 kills, and the entire army of FSdrake is completely cleaned up. And there's the GG. Well played from FSdrake. How many bases does he do you have? It looks like FSdrake's showing how little of an army he really had. He wasn't really even able to get that good of a scout off on his opponent. Workhorse saying, I have 5 CCs. You kind of heard me mentioning those 2 CCs that we're building. He did not end up taking those 4th and 5th expansions, but he did have those CCs ready and waiting to throw down those mules, and additionally just to take those 4th and 5th expansions. So very well played by Workhorse, just showing the superior macro can take out your opponents in this game despite whatever kind of tech advantages or decent force fields that they might have in those big engagements. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name has been FSdrake, and it still is. In fact, it actually didn't change in the past 10 seconds that I just said my name is FSdrake, or was FSdrake. But if you enjoy my commentary in any capacity whatsoever, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's exactly where you're at. You don't have to go to any other pages. If you also like my commentary at all, you can also go ahead and subscribe to my Twitch TV account for some of my live casts and my events that I do. That's over at twitch.tv/FearDragon64. You can go ahead and subscribe to my Twitter account as well, where I will be announcing any kind of big video releases that I do end up doing, and I will also be announcing in the future any kind of moments that I do and decide to go live with any kind of stream events. That's over at twitter.com/FearDragon64. This has been FSdrake, and I hope that you're enjoying this tournament. This is, I think, the last game of the round of 32 that I'm casting. I'll have to go double check on that. There is a maximum of 1 more game. But please stay tuned for the rest of the tournament, and I'll see you guys next time.